Good morning. Today is Sunday, December 18th, 2022. On Chanukah, which starts tonight, there is a mitzvah of Pirsumei Nisa, to publicize the miracle. Similarly, on Purim, the holiday of Purim, there is likewise a mitzvah of Pirsumei Nisa, to publicize the miracle. But there is a subtle, though fundamental, difference between the publicizing the miracle of Purim and the publicizing of the miracle of Chanukah. On Purim, the way that we publicize the miracle is that we gather in the synagogue and we read the Megillah and we tell each other the story, the Purim story. So, the publicizing of the miracle is to publicize among all those people that come to shul. Now, of course, everybody is welcome and invited to come to our shul, but mostly the people that come to synagogue are Jewish people. So the primary publicity of Purim is amongst the Jewish people. Chanukah is different. The way that we publicize the miracle of Chanukah is that we light the menorah, but we light the menorah facing the main thoroughfare, so that everyone who is walking along the thoroughfare is able to see it. In other words, the publicizing the miracle is in order to publicize it both to the Jewish world and to the non-Jewish world. That's why we put it in public, facing the street. Why should there be a difference in to whom we are publicizing each of these miracles on these two holidays? So Rabbi Yosef Soloveitchik, the Rav, gives the following answer. He says as follows: on Purim, we celebrate our physical survival. Haman wanted to wipe out the Jews. Achashverosh was going along with it. Mordechai and Esther came to the rescue. Our lives were in danger, and we defended ourselves, and we protected ourselves, and we triumphed. Now, we need to publicize that miracle to ourselves so that we will have gratitude to God for the miracle that God had done to us. But there's no real message that we have to share with the rest of the world about Purim because it's obvious. Of course, if a group is being threatened, they're going to do whatever they can to protect themselves, to defend themselves. And if they are triumphant, they're going to celebrate. Any nation would do the same thing. Any nation that is attacked, that is vulnerable, if they are able to repel the attack and to be triumphant, they'll celebrate. So we don't have anything to add to what we need non-Jews to know, because anybody would fight for their physical survival. But when it comes to Chanukah, what we are fighting for on Chanukah is not our physical survival. The physical lives of Jews was not in danger at the time of Chanukah. It was our spiritual lives. It was our ability to act in a Jewish manner, to be able to observe the mitzvahs, to be able to keep the Torah, to be able to keep a contact with God, to be able to stay connected to a Torah outlook on the world that was being challenged by the Hellenism of the Syrian Greeks. And we had to fight back to protect that, to make sure that we maintain that connection. That's a message the world needs to hear. All Jews need to hear that, but even the nations of the world need to hear this. The nations of the world need to hear that Jews must retain our connection to God, our connection to the Torah, our spiritual connection to Judaism. And if it is threatened, we will, if necessary, fight to maintain that connection, because we cannot survive as Jews without that spiritual connection. The nations of the world must know this, that this is essential to us, and we will not give it up. So how does the menorah express this? The menorah is the vehicle through which we publicize the miracle. How does the menorah express this idea that we must tell the nations of the world, in addition to ourselves, that it is essential that we retain this spiritual connection? So in order to answer this, let's look at the earliest visual image of the menorah. Remember, the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash, the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, was a menorah of 7 lights. There was a center stem. There were 3 lights on one side, 3 lights on the other side, a total of 7. Of course, our Chanukah that we light on Hanukkah has 8 lights because we are using the number of lights to remind us of the number of days of the miracle. But the actual menorah that had been not used during the time of the Chashmonaim, and it was cleansed and relit for the first time in a long time, that menorah had 7 lights. That's the menorah that was lit every single morning and every single evening in the Beit HaMikdash. What is the earliest visual image of the original menorah? I think you will find the origin surprising. I found it surprising. I learned it from my friend, who is also my student, who has now become my teacher, Abe Mezrich. Just after the Jewish people left Egypt, we were attacked by Amalek, the evil nation of Amalek, for no reason. And Moshe orders Joshua, to lead an army to defend against the attack of Amalek. Meanwhile, Moshe goes to the top of a mountain overlooking this scene, and he is accompanied by 2 men, Aharon and Hur. And Moshe holds his hands up. And the Torah says that as long as Moshe held his hands up, the army of the Jews triumphed, but when Moshe would lower his hands, then the army of the Jews would start to retreat. And so Moshe was holding his hands up, but his hands got tired, the Torah tells us. And so Aharon stood on one side and helped hold up Moshe's hand, and Hur stood on the other side and helped Moshe keep his hand raised. And with that effort, the Jewish people won. The Jewish people, the army triumphed in battle. But our sages ask, what's the connection between Moshe's hands raised and the army triumphing? And our sages explain it was not some kind of magic trick. It was not some kind of supernatural occurrence. Rather, Moshe's hands raised were pointing to heaven. And the point is that the Jewish people, and especially the soldiers who are fighting, should look at Moshe. And they should see that Moshe's hands are pointing up as a reminder. Pray to God, pointing to heaven. And the message of Moshe's pointed hands is that our strength does not lie in the physical strength of the soldiers. It lies in our prayers to God to assist us. And as long as Moshe could keep his hands up and remind the people that prayer was the essential element of their victory, they were victorious. Now, I need you to use your imagination here for a moment. I'm not able to demonstrate this completely by myself, so I need you to use your imagination. So the point of Moshe raising his hands was for everyone to look at Moshe, to see the image and the reminder, and to follow the suggestion to pray to God, to be connected to God in order to find victory. But please use your imagination now to imagine what that sight looked like. Moshe is standing in the middle. After he got tired, he was sitting. and his two hands are raised. On either side of him, there is a person. On one side, there is Aharon, using his two hands to hold up Moshe's hands. And on the other side, there is Hur, using his two hands to hold up Moshe's hands. What does that image visually look like? Well, there's a center stem, Moshe. On this side, there are three hands, one of Moshe's, two of Aharon's, and on this side, there are three hands, one of Moshe, two of Hur. In other words, the visual image of this scene was later represented by the menorah. The menorah attempted to capture, for all time, the visual image of Moshe with his hands raised and supported by two hands on this side and two hands on that side, a total of three on each side, one in the middle, a total of 7. The menorah is the visual image of this lesson of pointing to heaven, that our greatest strength is not our physical might, but our spiritual sensitivity. And this is the lesson that the world must know, that we will fight not only for our physical survival, obviously we will do that, but we will fight for our spiritual sensitivity. We will fight in order to be able to have our connection to God. We will fight in order to be able to observe our Torah and to stay loyal to the ideology and the philosophy of the Torah and Judaism. Because if we do not have our connection to God, we cannot survive as Jews. If our hands and our hearts are not pointing to God, we cannot survive as Jews, and therefore we will fight to maintain that. We express this very idea in the Haftorah that we read on the Shabbos of Chanukah. This coming Shabbos, we will read this Haftorah. It's a remarkable passage from the prophet Zechariah. Rani v'simchi bas Tzion, sing and be glad, daughter of Zion, meaning the Jewish people. Ki hineni vava shalchanti b'sochech num Hashem. God prophesies, God promises through the prophet Zechariah, I will again come and rest my presence among you, among the Jewish people. Vayoshav hamalach hadober bi, and then an angel appeared to the prophet Zechariah. Vayomer Eli, and the angel said to me, Ma ta roeh, what do you see? There's a vision that Zechariah is being shown. And the angel says to him, what do you see? Va'omar, and Zechariah said, Ra'isi v'hine menorah zahav, I see a menorah of gold with 7 lights. A central stem, 3 on one side, 3 on the other side, 7 lights. I see the menorah. Va'an va'omar el hamalach hadober bi lemar. And then I said, Zechariah, I said to the angel, Ma ele adini, why are you showing me this vision? You promised me that God's going to come and dwell his presence again. The exile will end. The Mashiach will come. We will regain our close connection with God. God will dwell within us, among us. And then you show me this image of a menorah. Why are you showing it to me? Now this is kind of a strange conversation. Vayan hamalach hadober bi v'yomer Eli, halo yadata ma he ma'ela. The angel says to Zechariah the prophet, you know why I'm showing this to you. V'omar lo adini. Zechariah says, I'm sorry, I don't understand. I don't know why you're showing it to me. It's kind of an interesting conversation. The angel assumes that Zechariah is going to understand this message, and Zechariah says, no, I don't know what it is. You have to explain it to me. Spell it out for me, like I'm a 2-year-old. Spell it out for me. I don't understand it. Vayan vayomer Eli lemor. Zedvar Hashem. And the angel responds and says, this is the word of God. The famous words, Lo v'chayil v'lo b'koach, ki im beruchi omar Hashem tzvakos. Your strength is not the strength of physical valor, and your strength is not the strength of physical might. Your strength is the strength of your spirit, says God. The strength of your spiritual connection to God. Starting tonight, we light the menorah for Chanukah. The mitzvah is to light the menorah for Chanukah. Part of that mitzvah is to look at the menorah, to gaze at the menorah, and to remember the lesson we are to learn from the visual image of the menorah, which originated at the battle against Amalek, where we for the first time learned that lesson that we emphasized in our experience of Chanukah, Lo v'chayil v'lo b'koach. Yehoshua's army, no matter how strong they are, no matter how valorous they are, that's not what's going to defend us. That's not what's going to protect us. That is not what is going to lead to our triumph. Ki im beruchi omar Hashem tzvakos. But our spirit, our soul, our spiritual connection to God and God's Torah. That is our strength. And that is the essence of Chanukah. My friends, I want to wish you a great day and a very joyous and spiritual Chanukah. And I look forward to seeing you soon in person.